Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. Yes, indeed. The questions that no one wants to answer are getting louder and louder every day, and we're here to cover these stories. In fact, today we're going to talk about the Epstein files. We're going to talk about Prince Andrew, but today we're going to develop a picture. Perhaps you'll be able to understand that the Epstein Island could have been this elaborate brothel, and many of the men participating perhaps knew that. We're going to get to all of this, but on this channel every day, we try to have a meeting of the minds. We try to distill the racism and the tensions that rise, but it's really hard to do that when members of the government are baiting other races and saying derogatory things. Let's get to it. Let's see what I'm talking about.
Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller. All right, Miller, we got Haitians now on the gravy train, not just eating the dogs and cats anymore.
Well, first of all, regarding the situation,
folks, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
In Minnesota, and by the way, not just Minnesota, we have Somali refugees that were dumped here by Democrats in Ohio and Massachusetts. Let me just say, we should not be shocked when you import a population whose primary occupation is pirate, that they are going to come here and steal everything we have. Somalia has this giant coastline, and the only industry they have created after hundreds of years is piracy, stealing what anyone going through who has actually built something has made. So yes, the pirates have stolen all of our money, and they have to.
Folks, this is Stephen Miller, a significant person of this administration. Keep that in mind.
Go home, Jesse. That's the situation we're in right now.
Okay, well, Tampon says you guys are after him, and it's mean and it's unfair, Miller.
So he's presided over, this corrupt, incompetent loser has presided over the largest theft of American taxpayer dollars in history. It's never been equaled before. The amount of money that's been stolen is larger than the entire GDP of Somalia. In other words,
so let me tell you, in Minnesota, right, this is what they allege, that the Somalians are basically taking millions from the government because they're setting up these adult homes. And then they said, basically, there's a routine. They set up an adult home. The government doesn't come and really do evaluations and inspections. And then all of a sudden, these houses have elaborate cars sitting outside. So they're saying that the Somalians have a system to defraud the government. Let's get to it.
The Somalians they brought here have thefted more than all the Somalians in Somalia have ever created for themselves in all the time that has existed up until now. So there needs to be a lot of people going to jail. And I can promise you the Department of Justice is launching an investigation that is commensurate in force and in purpose with the scope, scale, size, and magnitude of this controversy.
Okay, so
we want to welcome in Stella. Thank you for your great work, beautiful work. Merry Christmas to you too. Uncommon, welcome back in. Always nice to have you. Have Eric here as well. Nice to see you guys.
They just doubled their GDP. Thanks to Tampon. Way to go. So the commie boot camp. Sometimes we laugh at this. We see him doing sit-ups. Is that a concern to you, Mr. Miller?
Well, what's a concern to me is that we don't have a Democrat Party anymore. They still have the D in front of the name. They call themselves Democrats. We have a communist party, but it's actually the worst kind of communism imaginable, which is DEI communism. So it's not just...
Welcome back, Brutally Honest. Nice to see you. So it's really hard to mend the divide when we use language like that. Good thing we don't do that over here.
We're going to redistribute your wealth. It's we're going to import massive numbers of illiterate refugees and give all your wealth to them. And we're going to give their kids the first spot in every college. And we're going to make sure their kids are the next wave of doctors who are going to butcher you when you're having a medical emergency. So we've combined the two worst ideologies imaginable. Communism and DEI is literally
So the Democrats are communists.
a recipe for national death. That is what Democrats are bringing us, Jesse.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Have a great weekend and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
So now you get a chance to see what I'm talking about. This is what we try to do each day. We try to have a meeting of the minds. Believe it or not, we're probably split down the middle for this channel as far as the watchers, subscribers, right? We have 50-50 Republicans versus Democrats, but we have intelligent conversations each day to try to come to some reasonable conclusion together, right? Now, there's this big talk that's happening about the 60 Minutes presentation about the border. It was pulled. Let's get to it. Let's understand what it's about.
Over the course of nearly 2 decades, fielding inquiries from journalists in the White House under 2 different presidents, at the State Department, on Capitol Hill, I probably fielded, and this is a very rough estimate, tens of thousands of questions from members of the press, which included fact checks, difficult questions, investigative questions, every flavor of question. Reporters have a responsibility, good ones, to ask for comment on a story they're working on. That's standard practice. And if officials choose not to comment on any given story, news outlets reserve the right to publish.
Now, this is going to be a tough video, but I want you to keep in mind, we're hearing the same ring with all of these stories about individuals that are being kicked out of the country, also people that are being held as prisoners of war, even with Israel. We hear that there's a lot of SA abuse happening to women and men. Pay attention.
Anyway. I mean, sometimes you miss a timeline offered if you are asked for a comment. Sometimes there isn't anything to offer. That's also happened. Sometimes you know that declining to comment sends its own message. And if you provide a comment that's not related to the story at hand, I mean, remember Stephen Chung and his merry band of MAGA spokespeople have a tendency to attack the questioner viciously rather than answer the question. Well, the media outlet isn't under any real obligation to include the unrelated comment. I mean, it's a judgment call, right? So it's no wonder that when CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss forced 60 Minutes to pull a segment covering accusations of torture surrounding Trump's deportation.
Okay, so you notice what she says. They forced to remove this story about torture for individuals that are being deported out of the country. Pay attention to what's happening.
On the partial basis that Trump officials were not given adequate space for comment, red flag shot up immediately.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you for the support.
I mean, having been on the other sides of 60 Minutes inquiries or big stories they're working on before, and on the other side of thousands of other stories, often critical of the administration I was working in, I know how the process works. And that is not how the process should work. And of all the takes on the decision, it was the email Sharon Alfonsi, the veteran 60 Minutes correspondent who reported that segment, sent to her colleagues that I felt really got to the heart of what should be chilling to everybody. According to the New York Times, Alfonsi wrote in a note to her colleagues, our story was screened.
I want to make a clear point here. It's very important, at least to me, right? I cover a lot of court cases. The legacy media often have a narrative that they have to put out. A lot of them are in unison, so they'll have the same narrative. Every channel you turn on is the same story. So it's important to have people like myself with boots on the ground coming back telling you what we really saw and heard. And also that's why I take video, so you can also see what's happening. You see who the attorneys are. What do they say on the sideline? But now we're starting to see with this administration and also before that they're starting to tamper down on what you can say. And oftentimes it's a distinct narrative that they want people to hear.
5 times and cleared by both CBS attorneys and standards and practices. It is factually correct. If the administration's refusal to participate becomes a valid reason to spike a story, we have effectively handed them a kill switch for any reporting they find inconvenient. We are trading 50 years of gold standard reputation for a single week of political quiet. That cannot be the bar, and it should not be the bar. And I say that as somebody who has spent most of
We want to welcome in Mama Flips and also Deborah. Amy, welcome in, Amy. Amy says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Amy. Thanks for joining the Watchers.
my career on the other side of dealing with difficult questions. Joining me now is former ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran, author of Real Patriotism with Terry Moran on Substack, really excellent Substack. I have been really looking forward to talking to you about this.
And speaking of Substack, I put the Substack on the community wall. Please go follow the Substack for Watching the World. Thank you.
Let me start with this. Your previous job, I think everybody watching probably knows, was senior national correspondent at ABC News. You've had a multi-decade career in journalism. When you found out about the 60 Minutes, I mean, I tune into 60 Minutes. I DVR it still sometimes.
Sure.
You know, I mean,
It's a great program.
It's a great program.
And also what we're seeing in the media, we're starting to see big time celebrities like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion. They're suing small YouTubers for the things that they say. The times are changing. And as we know that R. Kelly's case was a precedence for Diddy's case, these cases set a precedence for all of YouTubers or independent journalists as well. Something to keep in mind, folks.
Program. When you found out about this, what was your initial reaction?
I was shocked. I couldn't actually believe it. And then when I saw Sharon Alfonso,
Bert says fascism at its best, controlling the network, what we watch. Thank you very much, Bert.
Alfonso's email,
Yeah.
I was completely disheartened. My heart sank because I knew what it was. It was either a rookie editor-in-chief who didn't go to any of those 5 screenings. Look, and when a news network does a big investigation like this, top brass is involved right all the way through the reporting and then the putting together of the story. They're screening it constantly. She didn't even show up. Then a few days before she shows up, she looks at it, she has a few comments, and the producers and writers and Sharon.
Now, she put a lot of time and research into this whole documentary series or what have you. They even went through the attorneys, the whole 9 yards, only to have it pulled. That tells you a lot about when the truth comes out, a lot of people don't want to hear it.
And Alfonso say, okay, we'll integrate your comments. It was the next day, all of a sudden, that she starts piling on these other suggestions, including an interview with Stephen Miller, and she provided Stephen Miller's personal phone contact information.
Guys, we have close to 250 people here. Please hit the like button. Bruce says the government has had those files since 2005. So 6 presidents have sat on those files and didn't release them. We wonder why, because both sides of the aisle are involved, right?
And to change the word migrants in the story to deportees, which sounds to me like a Stephen Miller change. So she's got some questions that she must answer for that staff, who I'm sure is demoralized by this. Did Stephen Miller influence what she was saying? Well, you know, and why wasn't she doing?
Do you guys see how this is similar to Candace Owen, Tucker Carlson, individuals that are starting to speak out or against the system? People are now starting to question, you know, are their lives in jeopardy? All of these things are happening. A lot of it is because they're going up against Israel. They're going up against all sorts of big machines that you dare to speak about. And this is a problem that we need to address. We also need to consider it as well. We saw what happened with the AmFest last week. We're actually going to get to it in this live program, so stick around. I'm going to show you how there's a big divide because of what you say.
The work when it counted. She wants to weigh in on these things. She's the editor-in-chief. She's got to get on the ball. But in general, it feels like this is a tremendous blow to one of the great American journalistic institutions.
As you know well, and people out there may or may not know, I mean, the timeline for a 60 Minutes piece, I mean, sometimes they'll do an interview with like a president when there's huge breaking news and it turns around quickly.
So we definitely get the point. I just want you guys to really follow this because it's very important when the truth or ideas and facts are being withheld from the general public, okay? Now we're going to lay off Donald Trump for today a little bit, not as much as yesterday. We're going to focus on Prince Andrew. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you think that the Epstein Island was like a brothel? You know how nowadays we have the passport bros that go to different places in the islands like Colombia and all these other places just to pay for relations with women and men? I want you to keep in mind this concept as we get into the next discussion here in regards to Prince Andrew.
Going from bad to worse for the man formerly known as Prince Andrew. Bombshell new Jeffrey Epstein files reveal.
Hey, Virgil, welcome back. Nice to have you here. Dave says, of course, it was political. They fear retribution by further Trump and his Gestapo Department of Justice. We're heading toward full fascism. Okay, thank you.
Ghislaine Maxwell sought to procure intelligent, pretty and fun girls from good families in Peru to make a good friend she referred to as Andrew very happy. A person calling themselves A at Balmoral Castle asked Maxwell in an email in 2022 whether she had found him some new inappropriate friends.
Okay, so you see what this individual, which they believe allegedly could be Prince Andrew, you see what they're trying to get at. They're trying to herd these young women like cattle. What a shame in this world.
While person A is not identified in the files, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor conducted a 6-day official visit to Peru in March 2002 to mark the 50th year of his mother's reign. Joining me.
So this is the 50th year of his mother's reign, and look how the whole how they're marred by this misbehavior, this conduct.
Now is Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Gee, Kosha, what do you say? It just gets worse and worse, doesn't it?
Sure does, Nika, as you said, from bad to worse. Andrew, just like Bill Clinton, who was in the news.
Deborah says both sides are dirty. Let's keep that in mind.
In the last 48 hours, they've been linked with Jeffrey Epstein and all these sordid affairs for some time now. So it's not new news per se, but just the more these details come dripping out, keeps them in the news cycle. There's more, in Clinton's case, photographic evidence. And in this case, more.
Virgil, we're not holding back on Bill Clinton at all. We're showing the Epstein, Trump, Clinton, the files.
Or details about words that were exchanged. It's not helpful to them. The betting markets are betting on who else is in the list. Like, when will we actually get new news and new names that haven't yet been revealed? And there's all sorts of people running wild over that as well. And of course, every time this happens, it is one of the rare cases where the Trump administration has faltered with its own base. And they just also are kind of angry at not having all of this laid out in one go, in one fell swoop, and just having more transparency, because everybody is really curious about who else has been involved or was involved with Jeffrey Epstein.
Looks like there's a lot of people involved with Epstein. Terry says, little Stevie Miller, the wicked creep, has his hands all over this crap. All right, thank you. Kevin says, PDF files. I like the way you've put that on it, so we're not saying words that are contrary to the guidelines of YouTube. Thank you very much. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Absolutely. And the drip feeds we've gotten this week have been extraordinary. All of those photos, Bill Clinton in the hot tub, Michael Jackson. It's been fascinating to see what comes out. And as you said, more to come.
Seeing Michael Jackson in the files does not help the storyline of his legacy. I hate for the Michael Jackson fans, but just seeing that. But it seems that they're putting out these files by design slowly, so that by the time you get to the real big files about Trump and Bill Clinton, you probably won't be paying as much attention.
Let's talk about offshore wind. Donald Trump has halted the construction of all offshore wind projects. We know he is not a fan of renewable energy, but 5 projects in the works from Massachusetts to Virginia have been stopped due to national security risks identified by the Department of War in recently completed classified reports. Well, Kosha, I've got to say, this is another warning to Chris Bowen. I mean, we've already been told about the threat that a number of our renewables projects, particularly the parts made from China, the security threat here, but Donald Trump's taking.
So take a moment and tell us in the audience, do you think, in harmony with the poll, definitely participate in the poll, but do you think there's something nefarious coming in regards to Donald Trump? I mean, listen, already what they put out yesterday is quite frightening, I must say, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you think that this is true and that there's something serious here. Put a 2 in the chat if you think it's just nothing burger, just a political ammunition against the president. Tell us what you think. That's what we want to know.
Look at the really quite stunning latest tranche of Jeffrey Epstein files, as they've become known. The Department of Justice in the US releasing more than 30,000 pages of documents and papers and photos connected to the man that we now know was a prolific predator, paedophile and sex offender, casting more, raising more questions for his associates, including the man who was until very recently known as Prince Andrew, and indeed of Donald Trump as well. Nina Burley joins me, US political commentator, author of The Trump Women part of the deal, and author of the Substack American Freak Show, which is a weekly newsletter keeping an eye on MAGA extremism. Nina, good to have you back on the programme tonight. We'll talk about the President Trump, in just a moment.
Okay, now keep in mind as she breaks this down, I want you to ask yourself, do you think the president was deeply involved in something nefarious?
Let's start with Prince Andrew. What do we learn that we didn't know this morning about Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and their conversations from these documents, and how significant are these revelations, do you think? Evening to you.
Well, I'm not as steeped in Andrew.
Okay, I have to pause the show. Let's stop the show for 1 minute. Deborah says, I heard a rumor of that, Mel, concerning I don't use TikTok and Twitter. So, guys, I spoke about Israel on TikTok and I was banned. And I simply showed how in the Bible and the modern day Israelites are not the same. And kapoosh, they kicked me out of there. So, again, I had started breaking down how Donald Trump, when he first took office, right? And I don't want to go on a tangent, but I just want to give you guys, since Deborah brought it up, I want to give you a little idea. When they talked about China being able to invade our privacy with TikTok, when Donald Trump was making this deal when he first became president, right? It was a big hype, right? But then slowly we started to see how Israel was behind the buying of TikTok. There's a deal where Israel will be behind the purchasing of TikTok. And then I have a video where Netanyahu basically said, yeah, this media is out of control, but in essence, we're going to be able to control TikTok. So we're starting to see these things develop.
Andrew stuff, as you probably hope I am, because I've spent most of the day looking at the Epstein, U.S. related Epstein material. But I do understand that there's some material in.
So again, I just want to say, if you really like this channel, I would advise you to join the Discord, check out our website. I think that's a way in case, because, nowadays, if you say the wrong thing, everybody wants to kick you out. That's just the weight of this world. So try to lock in with us through those avenues, because you never know what tomorrow might bring. Thank you, Deborah, for bringing that up.
There about Andrew and inappropriate, some mention of sort of inappropriate alliances at Balmoral that he had. And I think there's probably more imagery here. There's some image. There's this is 30,000 documents, and a lot of them are photographs, and it's hard to get through all of them, but you can see some pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's procuress, and with Andrew. And I'm not quite sure what that means within the system there in the UK, because he's so banished already.
Well, he is, but
how much worse can it get?
Yes, which is a very fair point, but I think it begs the question: why on earth was he sort of treated in the way he was by the establishment for so long, given some of the stuff that is now coming to light? Yeah. I mean, in one email in this tranche, someone calling himself A from Balmoral.
Okay, guys, Robin says the government investigating the government. What a joke. Thank you for your comment as well. Bruce says, absolutely. I also think those 100 girls who supposedly went missing from Oprah school were there. Okay, I can't confirm that, but thank you for your comment either way. Kevin says Trump, Andrew, Clinton, and Epstein all were buddies. All right, thank you.
Asks Ghislaine Maxwell, another sex offender we know, to find him some inappropriate friends. His phrase, and she replies saying, I can only find you appropriate friends. So, I dread to think what that means. There's another email exchange in which somebody calling himself A from Balmoral asks about whether Ghislaine Maxwell can procure him some girls for a royal visit that he is undertaking to.
Now, I can't speak on it as a fact, but it often seems like they had some sort of club there where people could be a member probably at a high price, right? 'Cause keep in mind that Epstein had over $1 billion in wire transfers. You know, the government knows who these transfers came from, but the money was enormous, and there has to be a reason behind that. In fact, in your local neighborhood, they could easily tell you where your wires are going, right? And they charge you with wire fraud and so forth. So we're not fooled by that, but it's something to keep in mind.
Peru. I mean, it's really, really grim stuff. We can't say definitively that A is Andrew, but it
Woman Queen makes the point of the day, says birds of a feather flock together. And unfortunately, that applies to the president. It applies to Bill Clinton. It applies for any one of us, right? If somebody's constantly smoking weed and you're with them all the time, there's a high chance that you might be smoking a little weed too, right?
sure seems like it, Nina.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't know if you'll ever be able to definitively identify him, but obviously all of these men, many of them were aware and treated the Epstein household and the island as a brothel, and they had certain expectations, and that's all coming out in these texts and emails between various men and.
So it's important that you know this. You have the pictures, and that's where a lot of people stop thinking. They were looking for photos, but takes a moment and look at the emails that are going back and forth between the culprits, also the Department of Justice. When they communicate the FBI, you start to see that some of these individuals were treating Epstein Island as though they knew it was a brothel. And so they're trying to set up these events with females. And then if you look at the files, now there's 30,000 that has been released so far, but you see they had a whole network of moving young girls from the Ukraine, Russia, and all around. What a shame.
Maxwell are actually between Epstein and various men. I mean, they just recognized it as a brothel, as a high end. If you could get in the club, then you knew what you were getting in there for.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the language is pretty outrageous. Ghislaine Maxwell, to somebody who lives in Peru. I gave Andrew your telephone number. He can ride, but it's not his favourite sport. Some two-legged sightseeing. Ugh. And he will be very happy. So serious.
It's almost like he's going to the zoo, right? Calling them two. These are somebody's daughters, mothers, sisters, and quite young at that. Jonathan says Epstein and Maxwell gathered intelligence for Israel. There are connections that nobody's talking about. Israel government has the real files. Thank you for that comment, and shout out to you for participating in the channel. Virgil says that happened at the Texas border. Biden deal. Okay, put it on Biden. Thank you.
Questions for Andrew to answer. He doesn't seem to like answering questions anymore. But let's talk about Donald Trump and the sort of the fresh pressure and questions that are being asked of the US president after these latest revelations. What do we learn about Trump and Epstein from these documents?
Well, we learned that he was the U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal prosecutors knew that learned in 2019, right before Epstein died in prison.
Okay, did you catch that right before Epstein died, right? What's happening with Trump? You got to catch this. That
when they started investigating him again, that Trump had flown on the plane with Epstein much more than they had thought. So there's email between these U.S. prosecutors discussing this because, of course, Trump was president at that time, okay, in 2019, so they were concerned about it. There are other things in there that are kind of sketchy. This morning, there was a big kerfuffle over there was some allegation that Epstein had, I'm thinking about the Nasser email. Epstein supposedly had written a letter to another infamous pedophile here in the United States, which was absolutely fake, and that got some attention. There is an allegation.
So she's talking about that mail piece that was sent to Larry Nasser, right? She's saying that was found to be fake. At least that's what the government is saying about that piece that we covered yesterday. So it's important for us to share all the information. I try not to slant anything. I try not to give you an angle.
Allegation in here of Trump hosting a party for, quote, prostitutes at Mar-a-Lago in 2000. Again, sketchy because these are not legal documents. They're just sort of notes that they've picked up. People had written to the prosecutors and said this was going on. It's not.
We have 500 people. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you for supporting the channel.
Followed up or explained. But I think the main thing that is coming out here, Elliot, is that we know that these men treated Epstein's operation as a brothel. But what is more sort of coming more and more clear is the degree to which Epstein was internationally connected and the networks that he had, and that he had three. Now we know that he had six passports. At least one of them was an Austrian passport that he had glued his picture into. He was working in Saudi Arabia with it in the 80s.
Yes, Bert, I covered that. They're saying that the letter to Larry Nasser was not a real letter. Thank you for reiterating that.
When he was working with a British national named Douglas Leese, about whom there's very little known, but he was mobbed up with this huge Saudi arms deal in the 80s. And so early in his career, Epstein has this connection to England, and then his work there with this guy, Douglas Leese, and then he gets into this sort of international skullduggery that involves weapons dealing and so on. There's some sad attestations here, lots of notes.
Really sad to say the least. Jonathan says Israel has the real files. Why do you think this government always bends the knee for them? Thank you, Jonathan.
From young women, I guess, to the police in Palm Beach or to the feds about being used and abused by Epstein and these men. There's a list of, there were discs, because we know that in this mansion in New York, and probably also on the U.S. Virgin Islands, where he had his other house, which Andrew did frequent, there was surveillance gear all over the place. Everything was videotaped, and now we see that there were discs, many discs picked up from the safe, and that all is part of this.
If you look at any of these pictures with Epstein, in the background in the corner, you would often see cameras in the ceiling, right? So Epstein was taking photos and video of just about everything. Now, I want to tell you something that I experienced for myself. When I went to Sean Diddy Combs' trial and I was in court every day, one of the key ingredients about his entire trial was the fact that he was recording a lot of things, people, places, and things. He essentially always had a camera, even in certain rooms throughout his house. Would you believe that in court they said that they couldn't retrieve any videos from his property? The videos that they obtained came from Cassie and Jane Doe and not Diddy. That makes you wonder, are people really telling the truth at the highest level? Can you even believe everything that's being said about Epstein? It's highly suspect to me.
Has that footage ever seen the light of day, Nina?
It has not seen the light of day yet, and I don't know if it ever will, because there are photographs. But there's not most of the photographs are of Epstein himself with girls. Occasionally, there are a lot. They dumped a lot of photographs of Clinton, and other men. Obviously, no. There's one picture of Trump with a redacted face. They're redacting the faces of these women, these girls, really, that were.
Now, here's another point, right? I know you don't want to hear it, especially if you're a big supporter of the president of the United States. But one thing that even Todd Blanche, right, his key guy, said, they redacted the faces of victims, right? And there's photos where they have redacted photos with the president. That's not a good look, even with Bill Clinton. So the way they're defining this makes everyone involved highly suspect, I must say.
In the pictures, but there is this surveillance gear. They know that he had like eight TV screens in one room where he was monitoring, and now they're finding they've released the evidence seized from the house, and there were, I don't know, dozens of TV recording cameras, and a bunch of them were.
Cameras everywhere. Dozens is it's an understatement. Stella says MJ former bodyguard stated that JE wasn't even well known and that MJ was house hunting. So that's where it gets tricky, right? Some of the photos, imagine you go to a venue, you take a photo with Michael Jackson or someone, then all this bad publicity come out. Now you have a picture with that person. Okay, we see that with Chris Tucker. He has an explanation, but it's when you have multiple pictures or when there's a desk drawer and your picture is all over everything and everywhere, that's when you have a lot of explaining to do.
In the nightstand in his bedroom and all over the house, there was recording equipment. And then there's just weird stuff like a taxidermy dog, pet. And in the items to be seized in the federal case in 2019, the first item to be seized is any and all taxidermy dogs from a mansion. So, like, what was he doing with taxidermy dogs in his mansion, even before all the massage paraphernalia and so on? But the whole thing is just sordid and dirty. And again, for us, the interesting thing is there were 10 co-conspirators that the federal government was looking into.
So yeah, did you get a chance to go through the co-conspirators? There's a lot here, and I'm pretty sure that these co-conspirators, they're living in faint of fear, especially if they have so much to hide. And we only know there's 95,000 files. They've only released 30,000. And keep in mind that the deadline was almost a week ago.
Including his benefactor, Les Wexner. And so there's a lot that's coming out. And I mean, they are being, they are being transparent. I mean, there are a lot of complaints because they're redacting a lot of it. But
yes, but we're learning
more than anybody.
Now, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the documentary on Netflix in regards to Epstein, but that's where they talk about the guy, Lex Wexner, right? Allegedly, he was a big tycoon, owner of Victoria's Secret and other companies. Now, in some of the correspondence going back and forth that came out yesterday in data dump number 8, his name is mentioned as a co-conspirator. So now it gets really touchy, really sticky.
I've covered this since 2019, and it's impossible to get through it all in
30,000 documents, of course, and lots more to come.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and we're going to go and talk about how the government has come forward to say there's no there. A lot of this information is inaccurate. So let's take a look and see what the government has to say in regards to the Epstein files.
New fallout this morning from the latest release of the Epstein files. The Department of Justice has issued a statement defending President Trump, whose name is mentioned in some documents. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is near Mar-a-Lago, where the president is spending the holiday week. Selena, good morning.
Okay, woman says, just tap the screen with your thumb. Okay, Tammy Pierce, welcome in. Says, what Jews ate purchasing TikTok? Okay, thank you, Tammy, for that. Joe Moore says, after an internal investigation, the agency found no wrongdoing. Okay.
And Whit, good morning to you. Lawmakers and some Epstein survivors are furious at the Justice Department for missing the deadline to release these files and for heavy redactions. And now these new documents are raising serious questions about why Jeffrey Epstein wasn't stopped years earlier.
This morning, the Justice Department coming to the defense of President Trump.
Now, pay attention to why the Justice Department would come to Donald Trump's defense.
After a new trove of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein were released, some mentioning Trump by name. The department says some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI.
Yes, Bruce, very suspicious to me too. AI Smart City, shout out to you. Nice to have you here dropping knowledge.
Right before the 2020 election, Trump has long denied any wrongdoing, and the DOJ has not specified which claims they believe are untrue. Trump has said he and Epstein were friends decades ago, though they eventually had a falling out.
You know what? I forgot to announce that if I get 100 likes on this show, I will go to New York City today and record and do my live filming the lights so you guys get a chance to see Times Square, the Rockefeller Center where they have the big tree, And also Macy's usually have a beautiful setup for Christmas. So if I get 100 likes, I'll be down there tonight around 7:30 to 8. Thank you.
Now, one released document shows a federal prosecutor in 2020 saying Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet a total of 8 times in the mid-1990s. Now the files are renewing focus on others in Epstein's orbit. Records show prosecutors repeatedly tried to interview Andrew Mountbatten, formerly known as Prince Andrew, seen here in a newly released photo with Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell and others who are unidentified. Virginia Giuffre long claimed Epstein trafficked her for sex.
So this is the young girl that unalived herself earlier this year. And you often see her family members talking about how much their lives have been unrooted and uprooted. So something to think about.
With Andrew 3 times in 2001 when she was a teenager, which Andrew denies.
He knows exactly what he's done.
And newly released emails from that same year show a message to Maxwell from someone going by the letter A, saying they're writing.
Now, I have put on this channel many times in the video form Donald Trump on Air Force One, where he explains that the young lady that unalived herself, that she was taken from Mar-a-Lago around 16 or 17 years of age. And this is a crying shame that this happened to her at her place of employment, but it actually came out of the mouth of the president, not a rumor.
From Scotland's Balmoral Castle, calling it summer camp for the royal family and asking, have you found me some new inappropriate friends? Maxwell writing back, so sorry to disappoint you. I have only been able to find appropriate friends. This town of Palm Beach police report shows authorities looked into Maxwell in 2001 for allegedly recruiting college students to work for Epstein, saying at least 2 girls complained about Epstein touching them inappropriately. Now some Epstein survivors are furious at what they say are multiple law enforcement failures and asking why Epstein wasn't stopped sooner, despite some girls coming forward 25 years ago.
These young ladies were crying for so many years, and guess what? Nothing was done, and the list grew larger. Pam says, copy and paste from the PDF files. It will unredact it. So let me explain what Pam is saying. If you go to the actual government website where the documents are, you can actually download each of these documents. But these documents are redacted. So Pam is saying that if you copy and paste it to like a notepad or something, it'll express the actual words. This is what Pam is saying. I'm just translating.
We have been through so much at this point, and we are just tired of asking for just one simple thing. It is really simple. It's stop protecting these powerful men and protect the survivors.
And what
I get it, Chris. Bill Clinton files. I get it. I really get it.
we're seeing is only a fraction of the Epstein files. Sources tell us the Justice Department could have upwards of 1 million pages. So far, only 100,000 have been released to the public.
So many more documents to come in the future. And Selena, there's also news this morning from the Supreme Court blocking the National Guard from going to Chicago.
Yeah, and this is a major setback for the Trump administration, and with it could impact the president's ability to deploy the National Guard to other states. So the Supreme Court in this ruling is refusing to allow the president to send the National Guard troops to the Chicago area. Illinois Governor Pritzker is calling this a win for democracy.
There's a reason they call Chicago Chirac, and obviously it's because of the extreme nature of war in the streets. So it is a little mind-boggling as to this action, but at any rate, this is what happened.
Democracy. But the White House is saying that nothing in this ruling detracts from the president's goal of protecting law enforcement officers and of enforcing immigration laws.
Okay, so everybody is excited because they say, well, Hunter Biden has switched gears a little bit. I'm pretty sure you may have heard about that. Let's get to that as well.
Thank you very much, ladies. Right now, new signs of a potential Trump economic boom as the U.S. economy grows at its fastest level in 2 years, reaching 4.3% in just the last quarter. President Trump crediting the success of good government and tariffs for the blistering growth. This is the Fox.
So Fox News is saying that Donald Trump's economy is bursting at its seams. It's doing the best in so many years.
After Focus. Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Banderas in for Harris today. So we're going to have more on that big economic news.
The question is, do you believe that? Because just yesterday, most of you in the comments were saying how bad prices are, especially for Christmas this year.
In just moments from now. But first, the Trump administration is charging into 2026 with a major immigration crackdown. ICE saying it has rounded up over 1,000 illegal migrants under the Laken Riley Act, a 2-week blitz named for the Georgia nursing student who was killed by an illegal immigrant just last year.
Yes, we remember that. Co-Sider says, my gosh, the perpetrators must all be prosecuted. Thank you, Co-Sider.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem also tripling payouts for migrants who self-deport, a move backed by Stephen Miller, who says each self-deportation saves taxpayers up to $1 million. And now even Hunter Biden is breaking with his father's broken.
Well, what does Hunter Biden have to say? Virgil says 300,000 children missing that came across the border. All right.
Record at the border.
We don't want immigrants that are coming here illegally draining us of resources.
Republican Congressman Buddy Carter.
That's shocking to me because a lot of people came across that border during the last administration. That's just facts of the matter, whether you like it or not. Again, guys, we just have to keep it honest. I can look at Biden and say what I feel is true and dishonest. I could do the same thing for Donald Trump because we're just trying to follow the truth. We're not just trying to cozy up with a certain party or be brainwashed as many men are and women too.
Joins us in just moments, but first, correspondent Madeline Rivera reports live in Washington. Hi, Madeline.
Good morning, Julie. The administration is doing a last-minute push to boost these deportation numbers. Until the end of the year, they're tripling the stipend for people who decide to self-deport through the CBP Home app.
So let me tell you guys, during the last administration, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I'm going to tell you, I live in New York, right? So many people were coming across the border into Texas. They started busing, and then they started sending people to New York by airplanes. So in the area that I live, outside of the city, upstate, right, they were sending so many immigrants, illegal immigrants, to stay at hotels. I knew a guy that went to do security. They were paying for these individuals to stay at the hotels. When you would go to Panera Bread, sometimes individuals would try to break into your car. So we had so many people standing on the side of the road asking for money. They had signs up saying, I can't feed my family. The minute the new administration came in, I would say within a week, all that went away. So I'm just giving you the facts. You can come to your own conclusion.
The amount is currently $3,000, up from $1,000. That's in addition to travel assistance. Dubbing it an exit gift, U.S. officials are hoping it incentivizes people who are in the country illegally to, quote, head home for the holidays.
If you wait until we interdict you and detain you and arrest you and have to deport you ourselves, you'll never get the chance to come back. So go on the CBP Home app and get the information, and we'll make sure you get home in time for Christmas.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, Florida bishops are asking for a pause in immigration enforcement, saying that doing so would be more in keeping with the Christmas spirit.
So they're trying to get people to self-deport, self-destruction, self-deport. Guys, keep in mind tonight I'll have a law professor on tonight at 8 p.m. Her name is Candace Kelly. She's awesome, top of the line. If you have any questions, feel free to send me those questions ahead of time to make sure that she answers for you. We're going to break down tonight about Luigi Mangione because his federal hearing starts January the 9th. So for the last 3 weeks, I covered his state hearing here in New York. I was in court each day, observing what's happening, coming back to report. But now we get a chance to sit for the federal hearing as well. This hearing is interesting because his life is on the line for the federal hearing. In fact, Pam Bondi says that he should be put to, death for what he did. So they're really, his defense team is really gearing up to fight in both of these courthouses, state and federal. And then after those two have been completed, he goes back to Pennsylvania to stand for, I believe it's 5 other charges in their state, including all of the behavior and activities involving him giving his wrong name to the officers, giving them a fake ID, and so forth. Thursday night at 8 p.m. Well, this week we're moving it till Friday because of Christmas. So tonight at 8 p.m., tune in.
Spirit. Last month, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a rare statement about immigration.
There's no conflict necessarily between advocating for safe and secure borders and treating people with respect and dignity. We always have to treat people with dignity, God-given dignity. The state doesn't award it, and the state can't take it away.
While the administration is looking to move quickly with deportations, there's at least one case that remains stuck in legal limbo. Federal Judge Paula Zinnes is extending the temporary order blocking ICE from redetaining Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Zinnes is giving the Justice Department until Friday to hand in their plans about how they want to.
So tell us in the chat, where do you sit when it comes to immigration? Do you feel like people should be able to come over into the country illegally, or do you stand with Donald Trump's administration that they want you to come through the right process and channel, or else you're out of here? So put a 1 if you think people should be able to come across like we saw in the last administration, or 2 if you lean more with what's happening now in this country. Virgil says, can't believe anything coming out from Lib News. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to talk about the strikes that are happening in Venezuela. There was a new strike. Let's get to it.
It says, quote, on December 22nd, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a low-profile vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations in international waters. Intelligence confirmed the low-profile vessel was transiting along known narco-trafficking routes in the Eastern Pacific and was engaged in narco-trafficking operations. One male narco-terrorist was confirmed killed during this action. No U.S. military forces were harmed. And then it does have the hashtag Operation Southern Spear. Now, they also posted a video to social media. I'm going to bring it up to you here on your screen. Take a look at this. This video posted by U.S. Southern Command shows splashes of water near one of the boat. After a second salvo, the rear of the boat catches fire. More splashes engulf the craft and the fire grows. In the final second of the video, the vessel can be seen adrift with a large patch of fire.
So each day we're steady knocking out these boats out by Venezuela. A lot of people are concerned because they don't feel that each of these boats have drug and so forth on it. But according to this administration, this is full of drug activity. I showed the video last week where Donald Trump said it's all about oil, but they started off saying it was about drugs.
Alongside of it. Earlier videos of U.S. boat strikes showed vessels suddenly exploding, suggesting missile strikes.
Tom is very happy with this activity. Tom says, Trump, baby, thank God we got a real man in the White House now. Thank you, Tom.
Some strike videos even had visible rocket-like projectiles coming down on the boats. The Trump administration has said the strikes were meant to stop the flow of drugs into the U.S. and increase pressure on Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. At least 105 people have been killed in 29 known strikes since early September. The strikes have faced scrutiny from U.S. lawmakers and human rights activists who say the administration has...
Okay, guys, Oregon says he's more interested in Georgia election rigging. We will definitely get to it.
Has offered scant evidence that its targets are indeed drug smugglers and say the fatal strikes amount to extrajudicial killings. Meanwhile, the U.S. Coast Guard has stepped up efforts to interdict oil tankers in the Caribbean Sea as part of the Trump administration's escalating campaign against Maduro. This does come as just...
Okay, the Charlatan says, why is Mr. Clinton not brought in for the hearing session by the FBI? That's a very good question. People are not concerned about Bill Clinton. They're more concerned about the president of the United States, Donald Trump. Obviously, we know why, but that's a good point of view. Morris says witness testimony is enough for me. Okay. I'm totally with you on that. That's a great point. Virgil says it's the season to hate whatever. Okay, thank you, Virgil, for your comment as well. All right, so now, in harmony with how I started off this video, we're talking about how there's so much hate in the world, and we're calling people's name. We're putting people down. I'm going to show you another case where we have this issue where people are offended with words, and this time the words came from the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, in regards to Jasmine Crockett. He says something in a derogatory way, all while blessing Nicki Minaj. So we see a bit of a contradiction there, but I want you guys to tell me what you think about the things you see and hear in this video.
Democrats have long dreamed of turning Texas blue, or even a bit more purple, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is hoping to finally make that dream a reality. She recently launched her campaign for the upcoming Texas Senate election.
By the way, guys, we have her coming on the channel. I'll keep you posted when it happens so you don't miss the show.
And as of now, she appears to be the front runner, holding an 8-digit lead over her Democratic primary rival, Texas State Representative James Tallarico. And just hours ago, Vice President J.D. Vance weighed in on the race at the Turning Point USA conference.
And Jasmine Crockett. Oh.
Now, notice what the Vice President of the United States says about her, and you'll be able to determine why so many people are upset about what he said.
Oh, Jasmine Crockett. The record speaks for itself. She wants to be a senator, though her street girl persona is about as real as her nails.
Okay, so he says her street girl persona is about as real as her fingernails. Isn't that a shame, right?
And Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is back here with us. So, Congresswoman, let's start right there. With the way that the Vice President speaks about you, the caricature he tried to make of you at this.
There's many different reasons why women wear fake nails, if that's what you want to call it, right? But when you say it and you bring attention to it, it could be an issue. Let's hear her point of view.
Conservative Youth Conference. I think every black woman heard what he was trying to say there. It's extra laughable in a way because what precedes this moment.
We have close to 300 people. Please hit the like button, share, and consider subscribing to the channel. And Merry Christmas to each and every one of you.
It's him coming out, to an entire pyrotechnic show and rock music and fanfare for, him to comment on your flair. But what do you think he's trying to say there? What do you think he's trying to signal at a conference like this to an audience like this?
Well, first of all, he's trying to rile up his base because right now we know that no matter if we're looking in deep red Tennessee, Mississippi, or Georgia, we know that we're swinging no less than 10 points. And unlike what we've had historically in Texas, because I know that you talked about the Texas dream of turning us blue, is that we have a candidate in me who absolutely plans to talk to any and everybody. And
she's actually running for Senate because with the redistricting, she's really out of her seat.
That is why they are afraid. The fact that he said I have a quote-unquote street girl persona, I'm sorry, but anybody that you talk to knows my credentials. They know that I've gone to school. They know that I'm educated. I never tried to put on some random story about where I came from. But at the end of the day, I am who I am, and I am authentic. And that is actually what they are fearful of, is my authenticity, because it rings true with every single American, whether they're a Texan or not. It rings true that I am fighting for real everyday people. And instead of talking about policy, when you're talking about the record speaks for itself, baby, let's talk about your record. Because the only reason you're the vice president is because the current president tried to have his last president killed. Let's talk about qualifications. Let's talk about who has actually been fighting for people way before she ever ran for office, whether it was in the courtroom or if it was in the streets, making sure those that were out there wanting to exercise their constitutional right to come together and protest injustices. I was representing pro bono people that were getting arrested as they were out in the streets. So listen, I don't have time for him and their games. They are scared and they should be scared. I need Texans to focus in. I need them to think about the fact that our 2 senators literally just voted against extending the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies that would help almost an additional almost 4 million people that are on the marketplace in a state where we have 5 million that are completely uninsured. They basically are trying to put another 4 million people off of their insurance. And this is before we endure the cuts that are coming because of the big ugly bill where we know 17 million.
Okay, so it's not the big beautiful bill, it's the big ugly bill. Bruce says, I don't fully support Trump and everything he is doing, but he has gotten the boys out of my daughter's locker room and shower space. He has stopped the mutilations of our underage kids. All right, I can understand that. Shout out to you, Bruce. Thank you for speaking up.
People in this country are going to lose their health care. Listen, I'm staying focused. I'm not going to be distracted. And when they can tell me about their policies that are helping Texans, then we can have a conversation. Until then, take whatever shots you want to take at me, because I have been a black woman my entire life. I promise you, there are other people just like J.D. Vance who have tried to do the same racist tropes my entire life. And somehow I ascended and became a U.S. Congresswoman. It will not be different when I become a U.S. Senator. And we can have a conversation when I get to the Senate floor. If he.
How many of you guys had a chance to watch the AmFest? J.D. Vance, which I'm going to do a deep dive probably Friday night, but J.D. Vance started off by saying that everybody's welcome, including black folk and rich, poor. But then when he made this statement, it kind of set everybody, or not everyone, but a lot of people at alarm.
Who wants to talk?
Congresswoman, I'm so glad you brought up policy. I went back and I watched your launch speech about your campaign for Senate, and a lot of it was talking about the back and forth with Trump and other people who have put you down over the years, but there really wasn't that much about policy, so I want to give you the opportunity now to talk a little bit about that. Affordability is on everyone's minds. You talked about extending the ACA subsidies. Can you give us, like, a couple of other examples of policies that you would fight for to help Texans, your constituents, on affordability issues if you were granted a seat in the Senate?
Yeah, so first of all, I think we need to raise the minimum wage. We have not done that in a national way, and so Texas is not taking it upon themselves, so the minimum wage is still $7.25. We can start to go ahead and put more money into working people's pockets.
Welcome in, Dennis. Dennis says we all know that Trump is all over the files. Okay, Bert says his name was trailed in 2021 of Ghislaine Maxwell. Thank you.
And whether you're a minimum wage worker or otherwise, we know that once you raise the minimum wage, everyone else's wages go up. We know that costs are going up to the extent that we know that when people were showing up in those food lines, as the president was sending $40 billion over to Argentina, instead of making sure that people that are supposed to get their SNAP benefits had their money, we know that there were a lot of working class people. We have somehow decided that in this country, we were okay with 2 senators from Texas voting to make tax cuts for billionaires permanent, while at the same time not being okay with making sure the tax subsidies that are temporary are available as it relates to health care.
Okay, very good. So now we're going to take a look at how MAGA has become divided, and it was on full display at AmFest last weekend. Let's get to it.
Today's America Fest conference. The infighting exposing cracks in the conservative movement. Former Republican Tim Miller says the drama was already brewing.
Trump himself and Charlie Kirk, before he was killed, were able to kind of hold that fractious coalition together. What you saw from stage was those fractures coming out into the open. So it was kind of a Game of Thrones-esque type fight that spilled out into the public.
It was Turning Point's first major event since founder Charlie Kirk's assassination. 30,000 people filled an Arizona stadium in hopes of energizing the party. But the discord...
I see a lot of people talking about why we can't say certain words here on YouTube. I just explained to you guys how TikTok, because I spoke about Israel, they gave me the boot. So YouTube is similar, but certain words we don't want to say, anything that denotes violence, actually naming the G word when you're talking about violence and so forth. So that's the reason why, obviously, to us, we're not too concerned about every little thing you say. But when you do not comply with YouTube, they pretty much put you on the slow track to mitigate your videos and your reach. So we're trying to keep our reach strong. And that's why we encourage people to be modest in the things that they say. That's all, nothing personal.
Between party leaders was on full display night one, when commentator Ben Shapiro called out anyone who he believes hasn't condemned far-right anti-Semitic podcaster Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, who recently spread conspiracy theories about Kirk's killing.
These people are frauds, and they are grifters, and they do not deserve your time.
His targets included Megyn Kelly, Steve Bannon, and former Fox News host Tucker Carlson.
So no, Tucker Carlson, it is not an excuse to go silent on Candace's targeting of TPUSA. If you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, the person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, idiot, you ought to own it.
But Carlson didn't hold back.
To hear call.
Isn't it crazy how all these individuals are pretty much there going back and forth at each other?
For like deplatforming and denouncing people at a Charlie Kirk event. I'm like, what? This is hilarious.
It seems keynote speaker Vice President J.D. Vance tried to calm things down.
I know some of you are discouraged by the infighting over any number of issues. Don't be discouraged. Wouldn't you rather lead a movement of free thinkers who sometimes disagree?
While avoiding criticizing any hate, bigotry, or anti-Semitism.
President Trump did not build the greatest coalition in politics by running his supporters through endless, self-defeating purity tests.
That remark reminding Miller of a different time within the Republican Party.
Okay, Sue Simpson says, you think, since when does Trump adhere to the law? The economy is in the dumpster. Thank you for your comment.
1996, I was a kid, but Bob Dole gave his convention speech that year.
But if there's anyone who has mistakenly attached himself to our party in the belief that we are not open to citizens of every race and religion, then let me remind you, tonight this hall belongs to the party of Lincoln, and the exits, which are clearly marked, are for you to walk out of as I stand this ground without compromise.
To go from that in 1996 to now, whatever it is, 30 years later, J.D. Vance, the heir apparent, basically saying the opposite. Basically saying, you know, if you are a racist, if you're a white nationalist, if you're a bigot, you know, you're welcome in our coalition. That is a pretty depressing trajectory.
So how will this tension at Turning Point impact midterms or even the presidential race? That remains to be seen right now. But when I spoke to Tim Miller, he said this fighting is really about the 2028 election and controlling the future of the MAGA movement.
It's very important to keep in mind, just to give you a little history on Candace Owens and also Tucker Carlson. Individuals such as them, you could almost put Alex Jones in the pot a little bit too. They were gung-ho for Israel, and they were so excited to speak on it, all favorable or to a certain measure. But then when the whole issue happened with Gaza and all the unalivement, and they started using the word that ends with side, geno. I'm trying to speak in code so you get my point. When Candace Owens started saying that they were committing these acts, that's when she said, as a Christian, and also Tucker Carlson, as Christians, they could not stand behind the videos that they were seeing on TikTok. And so that's how they started to make this turn against Israel, the state. Now, keep in mind, when I cover a lot of the action here in New York City, some of the protests that I've covered actually have Pakistanians there. They also have people from Gaza. They have Jews standing right next to them as well. And you wonder why, how could this be when you see on the grand stage there's a big fight? But a lot of these Jews, they actually spoke at the conference and also one of the protests that was in New York City. And they said that they did not stand with Israel, the state, because of its connection with more of a Zionism. They said that their belief system is more of Judaism, or the authentic the Hebrew Bible. I'll just put it this way, the Torah. So that's what the Jews in New York actually said. They came out of their own mouth. This is some of them. So when it comes to the whole Christian way to love thy neighbor, and even in the scriptures at Mark, I believe it's, if you want to go to the Bible, Mark chapter 10, it says, if you even touch a baby, you know, you're going to be doomed, right? Anything vile happening to children. So the things that they were seeing on TikTok did not stand with what they believed as Christians. And that's how basically they got to that point. So that just gives you an idea of why they turned from their support of Israel. Now, with that being said, now you see all the backlash that these individuals are getting, and you see Ben Shapiro speaking against them at this AmFest that happened last weekend. But this is the reason why. But when you go to the core of the Bible, when you look at the Hebrew scriptures, it does say that these things could happen if you are an Israelite in the Bible. So a lot of people are confused because the Hebrew text says that you can do these things, but then in the Christian Greek scriptures, right, from Matthew to Revelation, it says love your neighbor, no war, and all of these type of things. So there's a conflict, but a lot of people don't understand the belief systems, and that's what I'm trying to help people understand.
Guys, back to you.
Thank you so much, Britt. So I know this shocked people, but what was being said on that platform is not conservative and is a break with what conservative leaders have done for generations. You could look at William F. Buckley, who famously had his battle with the John Birch Society and said, you're just not part of this movement. We want no part of it. We don't want you in this movement. Ronald Reagan did the same thing. Ronald Reagan, following what Bob Dole said, we've said it before, it bears repeating again. He used his farewell address to America, his last speech, talking about how immigrants make America great. Immigrants make America forever young. And that when America closes its doors to immigrants, then it becomes old and it becomes...
Okay, Jen, correct. Alex Jones despises Israel. Okay, thank you for your comment. Fred says the Democrat lose people who are working up by the millions. Okay, thank you very much for all the participation.
Obsolete. Complete opposite of what's going on there. I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is the Republican Party forever. No, it's not. It's just not. It's just not. And we're starting to see a break right now. And I will say what's happening at Heritage.
Okay, Pretty Ting says sickness going on at that rally. Yes, indeed. We see a lot of divide, especially amongst individuals of MAGA, which is shocking to say the least. Rotting Dead says every group has useful idiots. Okay, thank you for that. Kevin says CNN, Democrat, the party that supports abortion. Okay, Kevin says it's called legal immigration. Okay, thank you for your comment too.
As a real conservative, I'm glad to see that break coming. I'm glad to see that a guy that on January the 6th, while everybody else is lying through their teeth and pretending that nothing happened on January 6th, we got a guy that actually stood up, risked his life while his Secret Service people were calling.
Okay, Ben Rusty says they killed JFK. All right. Rainey says 87% of Republicans still support Trump. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We covered a lot of information in regards to what's happening, the hot topics. I see where Donald Trump's wife is back into the news, so we'll cover that on Friday, news at noon. We will not have news at noon tomorrow because everybody will be celebrating with their family members. We get that, but we'll see you guys on Friday. But also tonight, again, we will have Candace Kelly on, and we will be talking about Luigi Mangione, breaking down the facts of what to expect for his upcoming federal hearing on January the 9th. I will be at the courthouse reporting to you guys what's happening with that case. I will also be going out for the Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robertson case as well. Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's it. Let's see. Pretty Ting says those people at the rally are what you call Christian nationalists, which has nothing to do with Christ at all. It's centered on power, exclusion, and control, using religion as a tool. Okay, Christian nationalists. Okay. It's amazing. Like a lot of the individuals that are so aggressive do not even understand the Bible. So that's a interesting concept too. We have a few trolls here. Okay, I see that. All right, Virgil says yes, a beautiful younger women. Okay, Stella says like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your notifications to be notified of upcoming shows. Bruce says thank you for streaming. I think you are telling me the truth. Thank you very much. Okay, all right, I guess that's it for the comments. I want to make sure that we covered the most recent comments as well. Okay. Fred says the Democrat lose people who are waking up by the millions. Okay, thank you. I think I covered that. Co-Sider says GDP is mostly attributed to the government, military spending, and top 50% earnings in the USA. Healthcare tops the economic activity. Okay, thank you for that. Vic says the Republicans have stuck their head in the sand. Why is that, Vic? Why did they do such a thing? Okay, let's see. Another comment came in. Bruce says he subbed as well. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. I really do appreciate that, Bruce. I look forward to seeing more of you. Deborah says, great talk, Mel. Okay, thank you, Deborah. Pretty Thing says, thank you. I've subscribed. Love the commentary. Thank you very much. Nice to have you here, Pretty Things as well. So thank you guys for tuning in today. We will see you back tonight to discuss Donald Trump, Epstein, Luigi Mangione, but we will be discussing these items with the law professor so we can have this news answered from a legal perspective. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you guys for being great moderators as well. And we look forward to convening back with all the watchers again tonight at 8 p.m. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. Christmas Eve and Christmas to each and every one of you.
Different voices, but the same song. Loving a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.